recording. If any of you have your mics on, just mute them if you could, and then if you got a question, just unmute yourself, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Before I get started right away, just a couple of things I want to bring up. Normally this is a class just for our paid members, but once in a while Brandon and I want to do something for everybody who's a member to our site, and just to show you guys what goes on in our bi-weekly classes. Today I'm going to go over a refrigerator diagram and a stove diagram, and it was something that I was working on the other day at TMM, and I'll get into that and tell you how I came across it, and then I thought it'd be neat to show you guys a couple of tricks with the diagrams that when you're working on something, when something happens, how do you get around it. Just before that, I talk about it a lot. I just wanted to show you guys on the site. Our last class is coming up on the 14th in August, and then Brandon and I are going to meet later today and going to come up with some more dates in the future of classes that we're going to hold for hands-on. But I do want to show you, if you look here on the site on the left-hand side, these are all chapters that I'm putting together for Sealed System Service. And just want to show you guys some of the things that I'm doing with the Sealed System page. The first couple of pages starts off very simple, very basic. This is not going to be something that's going to be way over your head. Chapter 1 is just about the sealed system, the components, and what each component does. Chapter 2, I'll just show you real quick. Chapter 2, maybe I just go to the preview mode, be a little bit easier. Chapter 2 is about refrigerants. What is a refrigerant? How does it work? Temperature, pressure charts, so forth. Chapter 3 is compressors and breaking down what is a compressor. And then what we're doing is we're embedding our videos and lectures in this. So it's not just reading and looking at pictures, that there are videos that go over and explain components. There's a lot more to that one that I'm not finished with chapter 2 yet. This probably should be available, I would say, probably in about 2 weeks, hopefully, that we'll have most of them running. Chapter 3 is more along the line sealed system tools, and I do have some videos I have to make on using some of these tools, and that's how today's class came about. So I'm just showing you a little bit about it. Chapter 4 was tools. Chapter 5, I don't have the link to that, so let me go back here to the editor. Now chapter 5 is all about troubleshooting and diagnosis. Let me get right into chapter 5. So chapter 5, we start talking about refrigerant gauges, temperature pressures. Then let me get back. Here we go. Then we get into things that to look for when you're looking for a sealed system problem. What do you check first, second, and third? And then I give you examples of things that may look like a sealed system problem that are not sealed system. And you can see all these here and an explanation of it. And then these are actual sealed system problems, and I show what your refrigerant gauges would look like if you had a sealed system problem, and these are the types of things you get. So Brandon and I are working really hard trying to get this thing done. I don't want this to be the focus of today, but I just let you guys know that hopefully for our members, this sealed system page will be up and running. And after that, we're going to have pages on laundry, washers, dryers, stoves, etc. But we started with the toughest one of sealed system, tools, and everything else in there. Anybody have any questions about that before I get started with the class? All right. I thought I wanted to go over some things in schematics and some things that came up the other day at TMM. We were cleaning it and getting some refrigerators ordered for the sealed system class, and I wanted to do some videos like how to tap into the system and stuff for this website. And if you look, I don't know if you can see it in my window, a picture of a control board for a refrigerator. And when I got to this refrigerator, someone had ripped the power cord out of the fridge and only one wire was connected to the plug that actually plugs into the bottom of the fridge. That was the neutral wire. The power wire wasn't there, and you had no way to connect to the back of the fridge unless you cut the fridge open. And I was like, well, I want to know if this board even works, or if the compressor even works. How am I going to do that? So we'll get into that. I wanted to start off with the basics, but I want to talk about this and the stove control board. And I did a little bit about this board the other day, but I want to talk about understanding, like, how can we test these boards, if the board works or doesn't work. What things in the diagram will lead us to testing that, and how do we check that out? But I want to start off with the on-screen simple basics that I put. If we're looking at a wiring diagram, and I don't want to start off, if you guys look, I do have these diagrams that I put up for you guys to download, the stove and this refrigerator we'll get into in a minute. But what's important about a diagram, when we're troubleshooting and we want to test out components on a diagram, what are we looking for? What are some of the key things that we want to look for in a diagram? Anybody have any idea?
The legend.
Okay, the legend. So the legend is important because when we're looking at diagrams, let me see if I have one in either one of these images. Now I have to go to the full diagram I have. Give me 1 second. I have them open here in Adobe. So if we look here on the wiring diagram, this diagram here doesn't have much in the way of a legend, but a legend would be little images or pictures like this would be in your legend, the RTD scale, what we call the circuit analysis matrix. What this is like when we put the oven to bake or time bake, what switches are closed on that board. So this is what the legend tells us. The legend here tells us the oven sensor. If I can zoom in a little bit on that, it tells you this oven sensor here is 1,000 ohms at 32 degrees. So you find that in the legend. Just so you guys know, if any of you are familiar with oven sensors, most of them at room temperature read about 1,050 to 1,100 ohms at room temperature. Okay? Just to let you know, Frigidaire did some training at my school about 3 months back, and I was told the resistance values have changed. They've actually gone up to almost like 2,000 or 3,000 ohms now. So don't get in the habit of knowing, oh, well, a room temperature, it's 1050, this is what it should read. Make sure you go to the legend and check, because I was told the new oven sensors inside of Frigidaire stoves have changed the resistance values. But the legend is important, but what about the actual diagram? When you look at a diagram, what are you looking for?
We're looking for our wires. We're looking for our points of where our voltage, where our current's coming from. Is it going to be AC? Is it going to be DC? What's getting fed? Where's it going to?
Okay, so
our loads, things like that.
So a couple of key things: voltages, loads, and the circuit path. Those are a lot of key things that we want to look for. When we're looking at a wiring diagram, one of the first things that I want you to identify is the loads at first. A load is anything that does a function, a heating element, motor, light bulb, solenoid, wax motor, damper motor, anything that we use to actually perform a function. For example, let's look at these parts right here. How many loads do you see in that picture? Two? What two do you see? If I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which ones are the loads?
5 is a
Five?
load.
5 is a
6 is a
load.
load.
6 is a load.
I want to say that's
4?
4. Yeah, 4 is a load.
4 is a load as well. So, if I wanted to, I could say, okay, so here's a motor. And let's just call this a compressor. What is this right here that I just pulled out?
Thermostat.
That's a thermostat. So if I put that here, could I put power to my thermostat and then come off of here and put it to my fan and my compressor? That power would have to go through that to these two components. So when you're looking at the circuit path, you want to know what controlling the loads. When someone calls you out on an appliance, yeah, someone might say, oh, my washer's leaking, or I smell gas or something. But when they tell you, oh, my refrigerator's not cooling, my oven's not working, the first thing you're going to do is to try to find out what load on that machine is not performing. Because when they're telling you it's not draining, it's not filling, it's not heating, it's not pumping, it's not spinning, we need to know, okay, if it's not draining, got a drain pump. Where's the drain pump? So I want to find that load inside the diagram. This could be a pump. It's just a motor. I could call it anything I want. Condenser fan motor, drain pump, or whatever. So when we're looking at these circuits here, we want to identify the load in the appliance that's not working first. That's the key. Once you determine the load that's not working, then we want to find the path. And if I wanted this motor to work, I could just take this motor right here and I could just put, oops, sorry, that was in my drawing tool. I could just put power right into my motor and my motor would work. But I have no way to turn it on and off. I have to have a way to control it. And in appliances, we have a motor. We may have multiple controls that power goes through all of them before that part works. So if I want the motor to turn off, I have to have a way to turn it off. I'll cut the wire, the motor don't work, and I'll replace it with a switch. I'll put a switch in there. Let me put this in the front. And I'll put a switch in there. So I put a switch, now I can turn this motor on and off. But what if I do this? If I add this, would this circuit still work? Is that a complete circuit? Except for this line that's missing there.
I would say so.
Yeah, it's a complete circuit, so I got a switch controlling it, but then what do I have here on the back end?
A fuse.
You have a fuse. All right, so what I'm going to do is whenever I give classes on schematics and diagrams, I'm going to break down little simple things every time before I go into the deep diagram. That, remember, you always have to start with the basics before you get into, okay, here's a circuit, we got to troubleshoot this, and power comes in there and goes out there. So here's the load. So we got motors. This is a heating element, that's a load here, number 6. The path would be the wires, but what we didn't say was the controls. The controls that control them, they could either be controlling them like a timer, or a thermostat is a control, but a fuse is also control, but it's there for safety reasons. And if any safety part fails, just changing that part alone doesn't mean you fix the problem. We need to find out, if this fuse went bad, why did that fuse go bad? Was it a thermal fuse because the temperature got too hot, or was it a amperage fuse where it got too much amperage? But if you run across like the Whirlpool dryer and you got a thermal fuse on that motor, and you change the thermal fuse, you most likely didn't fix the problem, even though the machine's running. And I tell a story, I'm not going to get into it now, but I've gone back to a house 3 times because I kept changing the fuse that I never really found out what caused the fuse to blow. So those of you that came in late, in the email, hopefully you were able to get access to these diagrams. I'm going to do a little hands-on stuff here with the schematics, but I want to talk about this. This diagram I've gone over a couple of times recently, and also when the videos that I posted on Back to Basics, I actually used the same control board for the Back to Basics. Let's take a look at this circuit. Let's say a customer calls you out and said the oven does not work. So the first thing is, what is the load that we should be looking for in this wiring diagram? I'm telling you that nothing works in the oven.
You said in the oven, it works, but it's just not in the oven, or is the whole unit not working?
No, the stove's working, the cooktops are working. Everything's
Okay.
working up top. All the indicator lights, all the elements, everything's working fine. We go there and our oven control board's not even lighting up. What is our load?
The control,
Yeah,
the oven control.
I saw you, Douglas, but you're muted, so I can't hear you. So it is the control board. That is our control. Okay, so if you got the diagram, take a minute and tell me, where does power go into this board that makes this board work in the first place? I'm going to zoom in on this
L1.
diagram if you guys don't have a hard copy so you can see better. 1 second for your answer. Hold on. Okay, so now I made it a little bit bigger if you can't see it.
You have power coming in from L1, and then from L2.
Okay, we got power in L1 and L2. Most control boards do not use 120 for the board itself to light up. Now, there are 240 volt boards out there, but most of them require 120 volt input for the board to light up. So on L1 and L2, how much voltage is that?
240.
That's 240. So then how are we going to supply power to our board then? Because L1 and L2 is not going to fire it up. The only reason why we have L2 there are for our 2 heating elements. They're the only thing that's using that 240 in that circuit.
So if you take a look at the electronic control, the actual load there, you'll see there's an L1 in and an L2 in and an L2 out. And we want to see where neutral is going to connect to
Correct.
the board.
So L1 goes through 2 relays, one here to bake and one to broil, and it goes through the elements, and then there's another relay L2 in to L2 out. So that's the 240 volt circuit. Now L1 does come into the control board and goes to a transformer to step the voltage down, because even though 120 comes into the board itself runs off a very low voltage. So I'm going to draw a little transformer here. So where would our neutral be?
It's pin 5 on the connector.
Very good. So if you look at this connector here, neutral's this wire here. If I brought the diagram down, I'll show you. Neutral's that outside wire here. I'm going to bring this back up. So neutral comes in here and runs into pin 5 on the control board. That's our input voltage. So what do we do with it now? If I see that that's my input voltage and my board didn't work, what's your next step? We looked at the diagram, we saw that this is where power's coming in. What do we do next?
I would check for a broken wire on neutral if I'm getting live.
Okay,
on
well,
L1.
you'd make the test first, right? You'd go right to the board and you would put your meter leads. I'm going to erase this so it's not as messy. But you can put 1 meter lead on this pin 5 and you go 1 meter lead on this pin 1. So let's take a look at this board here. And I'm going to switch to share my, how do I get my screen here? Stop presenting. And now you guys can see my screen, the control board. Hopefully. So this is the board. Now I know in the diagram they showed one connector, but right now it's actually two separate connectors here. But what I am going to show you, and I'm going to get my phone to add some light here because it's a little bit dark, is that there's numbers on that quick disconnect. Let me see if I get a, didn't think it'd be that dark, but the sun just went down. It looks like it's going to rain today. So if we look at this board here, let me see if I can get the camera to look at it a little bit better here. 1 second, guys. So if we look at this board here, you gotta look at this connector, and if you look right here by my finger, you'll see a number 1 just below that black relay right there. And then if I go across, let me see here if I can get it on the screen. That's plug number, I can't see the number backwards, P5. But that's pin number 1. So if I count over pin 1, pin 2, pin 3, pin 4, pin 5, pin 5 is that bent pin. So that's going to be my neutral. And if we look here on the side, then we have our L1 and L2 in and out. I'm sorry, L2 in and out. This is our L1. And this is our bake and our broil. These are our relays right here. Power's coming in this, goes through these relays and goes out to your bake and to your broil here. So if I want to test this board, I'm going to check it on those pins. Well, I got a test to make now. So let's see what we can do here. I got a 120 volt test cord. I'm going to move the camera back a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. I got 120 volt test cord. I got line 1 in neutral. I'm going to take line 1 and I'm going to apply it right to this board here. And I'm going to go to pin 5 on the board there. Let me change it. I had one a little bit tighter. There we go, pin 5. So right now, here's my board. Let me turn it around. Got those 2 wires on the back. I'm going to go and plug it into my extension cord here. And my board lit up. That's good. That's where power comes in. So if, first of all, like I said, let's start off with something simple. If you got this stove and the stove's not working, where do you want to check for power? The same 2 points that I put my wires for power. I have it on line 1, which is here. Let me see if I can get this out of the camera. I have it on line 1, which is here, and my neutral there. So I have 120 volts live there. So let's do something now. I'm going to go ahead and set my clock. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel, clear, clock. I'm going to go up and down. I'm going to set the clock, press clock. My clock is set. I'm sorry it's backwards, guys. I don't know how to make it so it's the other way around. But I'm going to go ahead and press bake. And I'm going to go up. Oh, wait. What am I in? Am I in a... oh, it's time bake. I'm sorry. Bake. I'm going to say 350. And let's see what happens. Did you guys hear the clicking on the board? Let me try that again. I'm going to clear it. Because, listen, troubleshooting's not all, can I read the diagram? Troubleshooting is paying attention to the sounds and everything. So when you're pressing start, the machine may not be running, but you may hear the relays on the board. So listen closely. I'm going to bring this a little bit closer to the camera when I do this. Bake, 350. Now listen. Did you guys hear the click that time or no? I'll try one more time. I don't know if I can make it any louder. But I'm going to press clear, bake, 350. We'll try one more time. Well, there was 2 clicks there. A little bit hard for to hear, but something happened. It said F30. What? Is there something wrong with my control board now?
Not necessarily the probe is not reading.
The problem is what?
The temperature probe is not reading. The sensor
Okay. So let's go to the next page. Actually, go to the PDF that I have here, and let's bring this up. And we had an F30 code here. Open oven sensor probe circuit. So if I wanted to test this unit out, what would I have to do to make this thing work?
plug in the temperature probe.
I'd have to plug in a probe. Can you look at the schematic and tell me where the probe would go? Now, if you look at this picture on this diagram, they told you where the neutral was. Where would my temperature probe be?
It's pin 13 and pin, let's see, 12. Pin
Yep.
12 and pin 20.
That's it right there. These two pins here, 12 and 13. Now, I didn't bring an oven sensor with me. If I did, this board would actually go into like baking mode and turn on elements that are not connected. But this, if you got an F30, this is where the control board oven sensor connects to. So if you got an F30, yeah, most likely the sensor's bad, but what you want to do is you want to go here, unplug it, and ohm it out from the board. Now, if I don't get a reading, does that mean my sensor's open? Probably it's open, but what you want to do is if you look at the sensor, there's another quick disconnect. This is in the oven. There's no way that plug is going to reach all the way to the board. So right behind the stove, this is going to go to another connector before it finally reaches here. And if you had a problem with this connector, burnt or damaged, you could go and say, oh, I got an open oven sensor. Maybe replacing it will fix the problem with the connection, but you would probably want to go down and check it out. The nice thing about most oven sensors is these two holes here, you can unscrew it from inside the oven and pull it into the oven carefully, and you might be able to get this plug to come into the oven and check it without having to pull it out. So if you had a wall oven and you wanted to check the oven sensor, most times, even without having to kill power because it's low voltage, it's like 12 volts or 5 volts, you could pull this into the oven, disconnect it, ohm it out, and actually replace it without pulling the oven out of the wall. So if you see it inside the oven, you say, man, I got to pull this oven. You might be able to pull it into the oven, disconnect this plug, test it, and even replace it. But when you do this, make sure, one, that you pull very, very slowly, because if you pull too hard and that thing comes apart, now you got to pull the oven out. One thing that I had was I had these real long tools with these hooks on it. They were like little tiny like lock picking tools, but the length was probably about 6 inches long with a hook on the end. So I could go inside that little hole because it's only about a half an inch wide and catch that wire and pull the wire back through. But if you ever do anything like that, this make sure you turn the power off, because you go sticking that tool behind there, you want to make sure you don't hit any electrical wires back there that you shouldn't. But for safety, turn the power off. So that's how you would do the board. But that's not what I came across that brought this up. It was the refrigerator diagram that I was like, oh man, let me see if I could get this refrigerator working so I can show these guys how this, I can make these videos and do this. So let's take a look. Anybody got any questions on this oven before I go to the refrigerator? Anything on the schematic or anything? Okay, so I'm not going over the whole circuit. I'm talking about the control boards and how they work and how they're set up. Let's go to, one second. Well, here is the control board and a breakdown of the diagram, and I think we pretty much went over everything. That neutral was the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one over, and then our sensor was 13 and 14, so 15, 14. 13 and 12 was our oven sensor. And these pins may change, but this is how you would find it on the schematic. This picture is identical to how you would see it here. Now the relays you don't see is 1, 2, 3 relays. What is this box right here?
Is there supposed to be a picture on the screen? Because there's nothing.
Oh, I'm
showing.
sorry. You know what? I forgot the screen share. Thank you. I'll go back and redo that. I apologize. I forgot that I was on a different window. Now you should have my screen. Okay, going back to what I was saying is that is it like zoomed in multiple times for you guys? Or you see one screen? I think
I see
it's
all of us.
mirroring us.
Yeah, I sorry. I think I shared the wrong window. Hold on a second. Window and here. I shared the wrong window. I'm sorry. Okay, so going back to what I was saying is that this was the control board here, and this was the neutral wire, the 5th pin over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and our power wire went in here to L1, and this is where I set up the power coming in. This is the transformer right here. So if I was to flip this board over, if you ever looked at a control board, you see all these like lines, they call them traces. And those are like wires. They're the ones that are soldered on the board and they carry the power to that transformer. So I just showed you the plug over here is the same as that plug. I apologize for not catching that mistake. But I said here we have a relay, right? What is that relay? Look at the schematic that I gave you. If you could look at the picture on the screen, see if you can figure out what that relay is. If we look here at the picture here to the left of the board, the top one here is bake, so this one is bake. The black one at the top. The one below it is broil. The one below is what they call DLB, double line break here. So what is the one that I have not identified yet? Look at the picture, there's 4 boxes here. If you look at this board right here, there's 4 boxes here.
Module, MDL.
That's MDL. If the top
Is that
one's...
the lock motor?
Yes, it is the lock motor. Actually, that's their way of saying motor, door, lock. MDL. I first looked at it and I'm like, man, I know everyone's going to ask me what MDL is. And I searched and couldn't find it. And I talked to someone, he says, yeah, he says, you know, these other countries, they don't speak English like we do. So when it's interpreted MDL, instead of door lock motor or lock door motor, they call it motor door lock. So these 4 relays here, so the other 3 are not apparent on this board. So this oven doesn't have what? What doesn't it have?
It doesn't have the oven light, the speed bake.
Yeah, it has a speed bake indicator. I don't know if that's what that really is. The speed bake fan, and it should still have an oven light. It's just not controlled by the control board. They probably have a mechanical switch on the control panel somewhere that they can turn the light on and off, or the door switch opening and closing. But this particular model, the board itself does not have a light button on it where you can turn the oven light on by pressing a button. So that's what these relays are. So this is what that board is for the oven. Any questions on this? No, let's go to the refrigerator. This was the one that I ran across this, and you know what, I killed myself because I didn't take a picture of it, but I'll sort of like draw a little bit, give you an idea of what I was looking at. So this is the schematic refrigerator. I did cut a little bit off only just to get enough of it and get it clear enough on the screen. If what it is, when I screen capture, it gets a little blurry. So this is the control board. They're both the same part. Why do they look different, and what is different about them? This is something important that if you ever run across this model refrigerator, I want you to know it.
It's just been snapped so that it could put the display in the harness in the positions to lock into the panel.
You're correct. And this is the actual face here that the customer would see. And if we look at the next screen, oh, where do I have it? Oh, I have it on my PDF. Let me just bring that up. And I have to share that screen somehow. 1 second. And we want to share window. So if we look at this screen, those buttons here are the buttons that we see, and the numbers are these numbers over here. And then I'll go back to that image in a second. So this is what the customer sees. So if we go back to the screen for a second, it takes me a minute to figure out how to switch from window to window, people. Sorry. So if we look here, these are the buttons that the customer presses, and this is the actual display. They're single-digit displays here. So when you get a brand new board, it comes together as a single piece. And just so you know, you actually have to snap it with your hands like a cracker and break it into two pieces like this so you can mount it inside. The instructions should tell you, but if you don't have instructions, I wanted you to be aware of it. But anyways, I wanted to make some videos during the class with you guys, as well as some more videos before or after class that I can put on this site that I'm building. And the refrigerator didn't power up, and I wanted it to be running in order to demonstrate it to you. So I went to the back of the fridge. Which two color wires on this diagram are power coming into this refrigerator? What two color wires?
Is it red and white?
Red.
Correct. It's red and white. Now if you look, red is here and white is here. All right? So let me just give you a little backstory. So I had this refrigerator, and I'm looking at the back of the refrigerator here. Okay? And there was a compressor here, and a condenser was here, and there was a plug right here, a quick disconnect with about 9 wires on it. And the power cord was connected to that. So I was talking to Brandon, and I said, hey, Brandon, you know, I was testing out this refrigerator, and I wanted to do this, but the board's bad. He says, no, I know. The problem is someone yanked on the wire and pulled the wire right out of that plug, and there's no power there. There's a broken wire in the cabinet, and the board's way up top inside the refrigerator section. He says, yeah, the wire inside the cabinet's bad. I says, no, I put power to the board. He says, you put power to the board? I said, yeah. So let's talk about, where would you put power to this board? Looking at the schematic, our board is called a jazz board here, and we have two connectors, J1 and J2. And if we look at the picture here, this is J1 and J2. So where would you put your power on that board?
It would be on J1, pin number 1, and pin number 6.
Okay, so let's take a look. J1, pin number 1 is going to neutral. And J1, pin number 6 is going to red. Okay, that's good. So let me get this piece, because I took the control panel and brought it here today so you guys could look at it. Let me switch cameras here so you guys can see the piece, and then we're gonna go back and forth to this. So here is the board. You guys can all see that? So here is the same jazz board that is in the picture in the diagram. This diagram's off of this refrigerator. So in order to get to it, the board's underneath here, which means I have to pop this all open and get to it. But I did something different. I gave it power from here. How did I do that?
The connector that's in your hand.
Okay, but where would I do it on this connector?
The red wire and the white wire.
Okay, I have a white wire here, and I have a red wire here, this one here. So I'm just going to shove wires in there. Let's see what happens. Let me get my test cord. I'm going to take the wire nuts off, because I had actual terminals wire nutted to it. So I'm going to take the white wire here and put the neutral right in there. It looks black, but no, this is the white wire here. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the screen and not what I'm doing. So this is white to white, right? White coming in, white coming out. Y'all can see that? So now I'm going to find this red wire here. And that red wire is a little hard to get to. It's buried in the middle. Let's see here. And this red wire is right there. And if we look at it, it's the third wire up on the other side. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 and stick the black one in the third one, which is red. And I'm going to re-stick this white one in here like that. And let me flip it over so you guys can see it. Well, I got power and my board lit up, didn't it? But the problem is someone broke the cabinet wire inside the unit. So what is the point of this? Just for me to see if the board lights up, but what could you learn from this? I'm gonna turn the light off so it's not so bright.
The board is good.
Okay, the board's good, but if I wanted to check this refrigerator out and I didn't see this board working, yeah, I could drop it down, and I'm going to bring it down for us to look at it as well. But what if I took this neutral wire here off the light? I'm going to try something here. Hope I didn't break a bulb. And I'm take the red wire off the light switch. So I took the neutral off the light bulb and I took the red wire off the light switch. Let's go to the diagram for a second. So I took the red one off the light switch here and I took the white off a light bulb here. So I got this wire hanging here and I got this wire hanging here. Could I put line 1 here and neutral there and make the board work? Could I put power to those 2 wires and actually make that board work?
Yes, it should, because they're
From the light switch.
feeding.
Yeah.
It should. So it should feed back through it. Actually, every component, if they were in the refrigerator, that red would still come here and bring power back this way through all these wires. And the neutral feed to everyone here and here and here. And then come into the board that way. So let's try that. So I'm going to let's go back to my desktop. And so let's take those 2 wires out of this plug. And I'm going to stick the black wire in here. I'm sorry, black. I'm saying black and I'm holding the white one. Sorry, guys. Let me twist it a little bit. Stick it in there. It doesn't want to fit in there too good, guys. Give me a second. So it's the black to the red and white to white, right? So if I flip this over so you guys can see the control panel, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the power. It didn't work. I wonder why it's not working. Let's take a look. If I follow this white wire in, it jumps to there. It should be reading. And this red wire is coming in. This red wire is not the same as that red wire. They join in the cabinet somewhere. So, yeah, it should be. It should be going to the board. I have another problem with my harness. I'm gonna try something here. Hold on, I'm gonna try to feed it one more time. The board's not lighting up here, as you guys can see. The board's not lighting up. I turned on the power switch. I'm gonna turn it off. I'm gonna take this red one off and put it back in here on this third wire red. Nothing? Board still don't light up? Let's check my neutral. Now the board's not lighting up at all. That's what happened to me at TMM, guys. The board wasn't working, and now just now it was working with you guys for the first time. It only works when I connect the light switch. Let me see something here. I've never seen that before. It may be backfeeding through the light switch because it's not in the wiring harness of the machine. Let's take a look at something. Let's look at this board here. How would I connect it to this board? You said pin J1, pin 1 and 6, right? Let me pop this open. Give me a second.
Pin number 4 is the one that feeds between the light switches where they meet.
Yeah, but that's the red and white, but I was trying to feed the red. And if you see, the red and white goes through the light switch, so maybe when the light switch is connected is the only way it feeds into that board back through the red and white. Let's try something here. Now I got just the board here now. And you can see how the board's in two pieces in this. So we want to look at the two connectors on here. So which one is considered J1 and which one's considered J2? If we look
J1,
at
the smaller one. It has 6 pins on it.
You saying this one?
Yeah, that one. That's J1.
Now if we look, just for the heck of it, if you look at this picture, and I'll make it bigger, instead of me trying to show you on the board, J2's over here, J1 is over here by the relays. I don't know if you could see the J1 right there, and if you could see the J2 here. What is that
we
little...
We only see your picture. We don't see
Let me go back to the screen, sorry. Told you guys that I'm not used to switching back and forth to so many different screens. Okay, so let's look at this board here. Let's clear the screen. So if we look at this board here, J2 is right there, and J1 is right there. All right, I don't know if you can see J2, and you can see J1. Now, without looking at the schematic, how do I know if we're going to go to, we need J1, pin 1 and 6. J1, pin 1 and 6. How do I know which one is pin 1 and pin 6 by looking at that board? There's something right there that should give you more information.
There's an arrow that points to pin 1.
That is correct. If you guys look, and you're not familiar with it, if you're looking at this board right here, you got an arrow right here, and you got an arrow right there. Sometimes it's a red dot. When you look at even computer boards, when you build a computer, they identify pin 1 on all your connectors. So you're looking for that arrow or a red dot to tell you which one of these is pin 1, like from left to right. So we're looking for J1 pin 1, which is this one here, and pin 6. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not the last one, it's the next to last one. So if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to re-add the wire nuts to my cables here. 1 second. All right, so which one is getting neutral and which one's getting line 1? If you could look at the schematic and tell me. Yeah, anybody? Which one's line 1?
Pin 1 is going to get neutral, and pin 6 is going to get the live wire.
Okay, so pin 6 is line 1. So now I'm going to switch back to the actual board here. Sorry guys, it's getting real dark here. It's about ready to start pouring. So if I'm looking at this, pin 1 is here. Pin 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So 6 is a line 1. I'm going to take the black wire here and connect it to line 1. And neutral is going to be pin 1. Now it is sort of important if you do something like this with these connectors. What I do is when you get old boards like this, I want to show you guys something. When you get an old board like this with these connectors, cut them off the refrigerators. If it's going to be thrown away, cut these off the refrigerators. I want to show you something. If you look here, you see these metal pieces. If I want, I don't know if my screwdriver is big enough. You press down, you press the wire up, and you press down on that little piece of metal like that, squeeze it in, and you can pull these wires off. And when you do that, I'm not going to be able to do it here while I'm on camera, but you can pull these wires out of here. You'll have these little connectors, and what I also like to do is, like, if you take and just cut it and leave 2 connectors or 1 connector on a wire and another connector on a wire and just cut the rest of the plastic off, you could wire this nut to a test cord, and it'd be easier to plug it on boards. So all these different types of connectors you could use for test plugs and make test plugs. I'll make a video and show you how I could make 1 test cord and have a quick disconnect and switch it to different types of connectors so I could use it for testing different things. Well, it's alligator clips or it's small pin connectors, because even though this connects to the board, you know, I don't really want this thing moving like this, touching other pins, because it could damage something. In this case, I'm not too concerned about it, but and then the neutral here, just the way they do fit on there, but they're loose, and this thing could come off real easy. If I had the smaller connectors, it'd be nice to have a connector that just fits right on the pins that I want. So I'm gonna check. I put power there to pin 1 and 6. I'm gonna turn it so you guys can see it, and I'm gonna turn on my power strip, and nothing lights up.
And I would love to see that video with you were showing how to do a test and a test board, and then taking apart the connector, because some of those connectors are a pain in the butt.
Well, I bought this kit and showed people how to take, you know, the round connectors that's like a male pin and a female pin, and you got like a 9 or 10 pin connector, and you got those round pins in there. I bought this kit off of Amazon that had all these different keys, and I'll do a little video on how to show you how to take all these connectors out.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, I'll be more than happy to. I'll do that as part of making a test cord with different types of connectors and what type of connectors you'd like to make it out of. So whenever I throw machines away, I cut a bunch of wires off, especially power cords, so that I can make a test cord out of it. So 1 and 6 did not light this up, but you know, when I had that light switch connected, the light switch went to pin 4. So let me go ahead and put it on 1 and 4 and see what happens here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pin 4 right there. So now they're not staying tight because I don't have the right connectors on here. But pin 1 and 4, let's see if it lights up. So, why did that happen? If you look, it came on, came off. So it's working on 1 and 4 and not 1 and 6. This diagram I got from Whirlpool's website using the exact model number of this machine. The only thing I can tell you is the diagram's wrong. Let's look at the connector here. Like this. And let me make sure the power's off. So here's the 2 connectors on the board, right? The red and white is going to pin 4, And the red is going to pin, well, where is red? Red is going to pin 6, like the diagram. If you look right here, red is pin 6, pin 4 is red and white, and then white over here. Is it possible the manufacturer drew the diagram wrong? I have seen it. I do have a video on a GE stove where the manufacturer definitely drew a direct short between line 1 and neutral in their diagram. And I redrew it how it's wired wrong. But that board should light up on 1 and 6 like you guys saw. So you could make a mistake. If that's the case, I'm going to connect the board back with these wires, these connectors. Instead of putting power on red and white, I'm going to put power on red and white and white. So instead of the red wire, I'm going to use the red and white wire. And I don't think it'll work, but I'm going to give it a try anyways. But you know, when you guys think, when I got time off, I just sit there and take machines apart and do this all day. I'm kidding. Bunch of y'all think I'm a nerd and I mess with this stuff all day. So here I'm going to put the power to the red and white instead of the red. And I'm going to feed the white here, which is neutral. Let's see if the board lights up. And the board lights up.
If you close the light switch, does the board power off?
Okay, let's see. Now, I'm not going through the light switch right now because if you see, I don't know if you could see, but my power is going right to the bulb and my neutral is going right to that bulb. But this board is getting its power from red and white, not red. So something's wrong with the diagram. I mean, if we go back to the other red wire, which is what you were saying, I'm going to take this red and white, put it back on the bulb, right? I'm going to leave this neutral like I did originally. When I took this red off here, I'm not going through the light switch. And we didn't have anything work, did we? When I went through these two, it didn't work. I'm going to just hold it. If I get shocked, I'll be like Mr. Kaboom. See, nothing's working. I'm on red and white. Now, if I go to that light switch, okay, we got to figure out how I'm going to do this so I get shocked. Give me a second here. I'm going to put the neutral back in there. These wires are a little thick. This is why I want to have all my connectors. I'm making a test plug now, but school's closed until the 17th, so I won't be able to do it. But watch, I'm going to put it here. It don't light up. My board's not lighting up this time, is it? Oh, there it is. It lit up this time. So if I go here, it's going through the light switch. Look at that. So the diagram's got to be wrong. I don't even have the red wire connected, which is the red wire feeding power. There's something wrong with the diagram, because when I did this at TMM, I put power to red and white just like the diagram shows. And the board didn't light up. I said, oh, my board's bad. Let's talk about this in class. Let's talk about how we troubleshoot this. And if you went by that diagram, you'd be wrong. I can't tell you why it's wrong, but something's wrong in the wiring. It has nothing to do with me disconnecting this plug from the rest of the fridge, because I'm feeding power directly to the board. I'm not going through any other components. The board itself has a direct path to power. We have line 1 coming in. We go in here red, we go to white, and we go right back out. It should not be on red and white. I can't tell you why it's doing that. That's a fluke. So why is the board in 2 different pieces that we're here looking at it?
Has engineering had fun?
It's engineering, but if you notice, most of the components on J2 are low voltage. Most of the components on J1 are 120 volts. So we got our lights, our defrost circuit, our compressor, everything is running off of J1, but on J2 we got our sensors, our damper motor.
We can't see your computer screen.
Oh, I'm not. Let me go back. So if we look here, the only 120 volt item we have is the damper. It is here, but we have our low voltage right here, our thermistors and everything else. But everything else is controlled here. All of our operating are controlled right here. If I wanted to, let's say I went to this refrigerator, right? And the board wasn't working. The board was dead. And I wanted to get this compressor running just to see if the refrigerator cooled, because heck, I don't want to order a board, pay 150 bucks, 200 bucks, put it in the fridge, it doesn't work. Now I can't return it for a credit. I want to know, is this refrigerator compressor running and cooling? Because I found it on the side of the road. It looks brand new. You know, so before I invest money, I want to know if it works. What would you do to see if the refrigerator's cooling when the board is completely dead?
I would probably try to use it. I mean, if it took it, I would probably do a 3-in-1, like a jumpstart the compressor.
Okay.
And let's see if it runs, if it doesn't need an inverter board.
Let me change screens to go back to my other screen here, the actual display that I have here. 1 second. Figure out how to do that. Window, and we're gonna go to. I guess we go to this window. No? I'm lost, guys. Too many windows here. I got like 5 windows open. Let me do this, see if I can get back to my desktop screen here. Okay, you're seeing the board now, right?
No, we're seeing a
PDFs?
file screen
Okay, yeah, that's
where it shows a bunch of images, like your documents file.
okay, yeah, let me one more time here. Let's present. Here. There we go. I got too many windows open. It's hard to navigate. All right, so here's the board. Let's go to the schematic and look at this board at the same time. And then this will be the last thing for today. So here's the board. Yes, I could put a 3-in-1 on here. The compressor would run, but my fan, my condenser fan motor and my evaporator fan motor, they won't be working, and so I won't know if the actual refrigerator is cooling properly. So what could I do to get those components running?
Would you be able to just send power direct to the black and red wire, the blue wire, to run those components?
Yes, we'd first have to get power red, right? And that'll do 2 things. Red will come in here, and I just put a jumper from red to blue. I could do it either on the board, or I could do it at that connector that I showed you there. That's not going to get my fan motor working, my evaporator fan. How am I going to get my evap fan to work?
Need an additional test cord to J2 pin 8.
Okay, J2 pin 8 to what? This is a trick, Daniel. Look at it closely, because I heard what you said earlier, but anybody else see it? Look closely, guys. How am I going to get that evaporator fan to run? I'm going to run a wire from that J2 pin 8 right here, but I got to complete the circuit for the fan. What do I need to complete?
Goes to the red wire.
It goes to what?
It shows the red wire in the breakdown.
It can't go to red, because look, this red is also coming into the fan already. You can't put 2 reds there, right? So what do I need?
You need neutral.
I need a neutral, so I got to go over here to what? Pin 1 over here with a wire. That fan will not work if I go red to red because I'm putting 2 line 1s to it. You see that?
Yeah, that's what I originally thought.
That's okay. This is like, the whole idea of this class was just, listen, the only way you guys are really going to get good at diagrams and learn diagrams is just to look at and ask yourself silly questions like this and try to figure out circuits of these components. You know, we'll do more of these classes on diagrams and everything else. I know a lot of you are not necessarily paid members. I did open it up to everybody because I'd like to share with everybody, but these classes are normally for our paid members. But once in a while, we put those videos online for you, or we invite you here just so you can see this is what we teach you behind the scenes. So if anybody's got any questions, I'll answer any of your questions right now about any of the diagrams or anything we talked about today. If not, you know, we went just over an hour, and then I'm going to wrap it up. I got some work to do on the house.
How much is the paid membership?
$25 a month. But what the membership does is we have a class every other week. We do have a bunch of other videos in the member section. If you were here when I showed the online class, the portion that I'm building, that's going to be free to members. Eventually, we're going to package it up and sell it to people where they have to pay additional money to get that. But right now, it's going to be open to members until we're done producing all of them, which is going to be some time. So we're constantly putting out new content. And then the last thing you get as a member is we have an app called Voxer. And if you're out there doing service, it's a peer-to-peer group of technicians that could help you out. Like you could ask for technical documentation. You could put pictures. It's almost like WhatsApp where you could put questions and stuff. You say, hey, anybody got a diagram for this? And a lot of people out there in the community will download it, put it on a drive like I did today, and send you the link to the drive. That's all part of the $25 a month. That helps us support us too with the other content that we put free on YouTube. You know, I told Brandon I don't even want to monetize it. I don't want you guys to watch commercials. I want you to learn something. One last thing, if you guys got a second, I bought a tool. Let me see if I can share my camera real quick here. Stop presenting. I thought I'd show you this one last thing. I had a student in class working on his first washing machine, front load washer, and he was trying to put that boot on the front of the washer. Now LG has these boot spring tools. Let me see something. Let me just get my keyboard here. I'll show you guys. I'm gonna go back to screen share. Give me a second to figure out how to do that again. Screen share window. Let's just say. Okay, you guys gonna see yourself for a second. Now, if you look here, here's the LG spring tool. It's like a pair of pliers, and then you hook the spring and you squeeze it, and it stretches the spring out to remove and reinstall. And here's another one for a different set of springs. But I was searching for this guy, and then one of my techs asked for it, and it's this other spring tool, which is right here, which is more like a universal one. Okay, I went ahead and bought that. I just got it, as a matter of fact, yesterday. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. So here it is. And before class, I was trying to do it on the washer, but I didn't have time to mess with it. So what you do is you hook this into the 2 eyelets of the spring, and it's got little hooks on it on the very end. And then when you go ahead and you rotate this, it'll stretch the spring for you and hold it in that position. And then when you want to put it back on the washer, it's already stretched out to the position you want. You just put it on the washer and you tighten this up. When school comes back on the 17th, we'll get this young man to do this and put it. But it does work very well. It is a little tricky because this one wants to rotate a little bit, where I think it would have been better if both of these here were almost stationary. What I'd like to do is probably put something here and like a little eyelet that something straight would keep this from rotating. I'd like to have it to where they're both point in the same way all the time, that one doesn't go like this. But I do think it's a pretty cool tool. I was talking to the tech that was asking about it. Says, man, we can make one. I can get this bolt and I can put a nut on it and you stretch it out. And then I went online and said, oh, somebody already invented it. So this is just something I'd show you guys. Whenever I find these neat tools, I like to share. So anybody else have any other questions? Other than that, we're going to close for today.
Thank you again.
No problem. Appreciate y'all.